Sox, Bulls, Cubs and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we're going to be talking about another Bears loss, but another week closer to a top 5 pick for the Bears. We'll be talking some baseball and maybe some more. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the Stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Season is going on right now. So head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, it is almost the end of the season. So close.
2 more games to go.
2 more miserable games against division opponents. And here's the thing with the division opponents is records don't matter with division opponents because you see them twice every single year. Those are the teams you know the best, and anything weird can happen. So do I think they're going to win both? No. But I do think they're going to win one of the two.
I kind of feel the same way, and I don't know if it's going to be a case where they beat the Lions next week because they just got bowled over by the Carolina Panthers, and that the Bears running game might be able to take advantage of that, or it's going to be against the Vikings team that's taking a seat back because they've got stuff clinched and they're going to be resting for the playoffs. I could see either or. I mean, right now, you look at the situation the Bears are in, and, this was an exercise I want to do on the show today is you look at the draft position and you say, okay, you control your own destiny for at least the second overall pick, but Justin Fields, for all we know, is going to be playing next week. Matt Eberflus said that if he's healthy, he's going to be playing. And I kind of have that feeling that they're going to have that mentality even week 18 in the final game of the season. If he wasn't healthy and they were benching him, then I would not be worried at all about winning any of these games. But I think as long as he's healthy, he is going to be playing these final 2 games.
Here's the thing. And before we start talking about the Bills-Bears game, here's the thing. With the way the games have played out, the worst the Bears can draft at this point is 7th.
Right.
Absolute worst. So they could go anywhere from number 1 to number 7.
Because number 1 just got suddenly more possible with Houston beating the Tennessee Titans on Christmas Eve.
Yep. So with Houston having a tie, you're not going to have, we talked about before multiple times about how the Bears, the strength of schedule is the tiebreaker in the draft order, and the Bears have the highest strength of schedule in all of the NFL. But there's not going to be a tie between the Texans and the Bears because the Texans have a tie. So essentially they have 2.5 wins to the Bears 3 wins.
Right. I mean, there are 2 key ties in this whole thing. The Colts have a tie and the Houston has a tie. That was the same game. The Houston and the Colts tied week 1. So, Indy, if you finished with 4 wins and Indy finished with 4 wins, they would have that tie. That would affect the way things go. And then obviously Houston being number 1. I mean, listen, if the Bears lose out, they have that second spot clinched. It doesn't matter what other teams do.
Correct.
Now, what's interesting? Here's what I'm keeping an eye out for. Dang Tom Brady beating the Cardinals. If the Cardinals would have won, they would have had 5 wins. That would have been a nice cushion there. Now, Denver, they just fired Hackett. And I mean, that game that they played on Christmas Day was an international laughingstock. You heard about that. You saw it. I mean,
I did.
I don't know how much you've been on Twitter. You've seen the clips of, turmoil on the sidelines. It's a mess there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the offensive lineman attacking the backup quarterback. It is a disaster.
they might be the worst off team in the National Football League.
And here's the thing about that first overall pick. The remaining 2 games that the Texans have are both winnable. The Jaguars and the Colts.
The Colts is definitely winnable. That is another team that is in complete turmoil right now. The Jaguars are on a little bit of a run, so I don't see them beating them, but I could see them beating the Colts.
I mean, it's way more likely they beat the Colts, but Jaguars are not a powerhouse. They are a team. I mean, they've been winning games, but they have not been blowing anybody out. They're a team that kind of plays up or down to their competition. I don't think the Texans are nearly as bad as a lot of other teams. They have a terrible record, but when you actually look at it, like, I mean, would you rather be the Texans or the Broncos?
I mean, I would rather be anybody but the Broncos.
I would rather be the Texans than Arizona. I would rather be the Texans than Atlanta. I would rather be the Texans than Vegas and possibly the Saints. Like the Texans, I don't think are that. Their record is terrible, but they're a team that I don't think is that far away from being a I want to say competitive, but not Super Bowl competitive, but competing for a playoff spot competitive.
I mean, the Texans did almost beat Dallas in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
We're a few breaks away from having a few more wins. But I think that beating the Colts is very, very possible. And the Colts and Houston would like as good of a draft position as possible. That to me feels like the ultimate dream is getting that first overall pick. My biggest concern is getting a top 2 pick. There are a few things I'm looking out for, and analyzing this with giving the Bears a cushion to possibly win one of these games. Because like I said, you lose both, doesn't matter. You're getting at least the top 2, but you have Denver's pick that goes to Seattle. Mm-hmm. Denver fired their coach. Denver has no incentive to tank because the pick goes to Seattle.
But so, their net last 2 games are against the Chiefs and the Chargers.
Yes, that's the problem. That's the problem. I mean, probably not winning one of those. I mean, football is weird. Things happen. Now, do they play the Chiefs this week and then the Chargers the week after?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Because I was going to say, if the Chiefs was the last week, then maybe they'd be resting their guys. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be a problem, obviously. And then, Arizona, who does Arizona have? I don't even know. I mean, even with what they do have, the chances of them winning a game are probably not as good because Arizona is just not good.
Arizona has the Falcons, which one of those teams has to win.
Or they tie.
Or they tie, which is fine too. And then they play the 49ers, who will be competing for that second seed.
Yeah, that is a game of significance.
And here's why I don't think the Vikings will be resting players, because I think that second seed is important.
Yes, it is.
Because you will be playing the worst wild card team, which right now is the Commanders, who are free falling. And
you know who it's going to be. The Packers are going to get into the playoffs
somehow. But
it's going to happen.
But the Vikings have 2 more games left. They have the Packers this week, the Bears next week, and the 49ers have the Raiders this week and the Cardinals next week. So
yeah.
The 49ers, even with a Mr. Irrelevant bottom barrel quarterback, are going to win both of those games, and they currently hold the tiebreaker over the Vikings. So the Vikings have to finish with a better record, which means the Vikings, they're 1 game ahead right now. So the Vikings cannot lose a game. So if the Vikings lose to the Packers if the Packers lose this week, if the Packers lose this week to the Vikings, I think that kind of erases the Packers' chances of making the playoffs.
It makes it a lot harder. I mean, the thing is, this week, the Packers not only won, but everybody they needed to lose lost. That really just boosted their chances. Even if all those teams lost in the pack, like I think if the Packers lose to the Dolphins, I think they're done. But they didn't. So, and that's a good point about the 49ers and the Vikings. And, you know, we've seen it in the past where even if it's just a matter of seeding, you're going to play. I mean, really, the final week you rest starters if you don't have any seeding or spying to play for. Like, if you're locked in as the 3 seed and there's nothing you can do, then you're resting your starters. If you're locked in with the first round bye, obviously resting your starters. But, you know, like you said, that is not the case. And I do feel like they will be playing for something, obviously. And, you know, if it's one of those games where it's kind of back and forth, then they're going to play even harder. But there's still that thought in the back of my mind that even if the Vikings played for something, they started their guys. Soldier Field hasn't always been very kind to the Vikings, so the Bears beating them would not fully surprise me.
Wouldn't surprise me. All right, I wouldn't be like dropping shocked. Like my monocle wouldn't fall out, but I would not put any money on that.
Oh no. I wouldn't put any money either. I would definitely bet against the Bears, but I'm just saying if the Bears came out like with a victory in that final game, I wouldn't be like mouth agape, how on earth did that happen? But I'm looking at the draft board right now, and I mean, so okay. Best case scenario, you lose the rest of your games, Houston wins a game. That's best case scenario. And like you said, the Bears can't win any more than 5 games because they have 3 wins and there are only 2 games left. So worst case scenario, you finish 7th. Now, it's still in the top 10, but the difference between 2 and 7 is pretty significant, I would say.
I would, yeah, absolutely agree to that.
And it's like you don't really have much cushion. If Denver
they have more cushion than they did last week at this time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing, is things can change drastically over a week. It really can. I'm just saying that if Arizona and Denver both had one more win, then I would feel like we would really have to, quote, screw things up in a wacky way to not get the 2nd overall pick. But that's not the case. Arizona has 4, Denver has 4, and I give Indianapolis 4.5 because they have the tie. I have trouble seeing them winning 2 games and going to 5 wins. I think that it's likely that they're going to finish with 3 or 4. So if they finish with 4, you pray that Arizona and Denver can somehow win 1 more.
Well, let's see. Either, I mean, I'm looking at it. The Bears probably, I'm not going to say, you know what? I think the Bears, the worst they could finish is actually 6th. Oh, never mind. If Arizona beats Atlanta. All right. But they got, so some of these teams play each other. So let's see. Houston. I'm looking at this again. So we've got Texans play the Jaguars and the Colts. So Jags, Colts. So
but remember, the Colts have that tie, so it makes things a little different.
So if the Colts lose against Houston, then that would eliminate them from being ahead of the Bears, because they would be at 5.5 wins, no matter, essentially 5.5 wins.
Right.
And if Houston won that game, then the Bears would leapfrog them to
The number one spot.
the number one spot. Bears play Detroit and Minnesota. Who did I say? Denver has the Chiefs and the
Chargers.
Who's Colts? Colts are actually playing right now, so they've got 3 games left. They've got the Chargers, the Giants, and the Texans. Falcons have Falcons schedule. They've got Arizona and Tampa Bay. Tom Brady has never lost to Atlanta in his career. I don't think that starts this year.
Hmm.
And then the Rams are actually not playing that bad.
No, all of a sudden.
I mean, they actually have a quarterback in instead of a backup. So they play the Chargers and the Seahawks. Probably not beating the Chargers, but Seahawks, that's definitely a winnable game.
Yeah, they're kind of falling back to earth a bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's make this play out a little bit. Houston Jaguars, right?
Yeah.
All right. Houston Colts.
I'm tempted to say Houston
I
because
am
the Colts are in
too.
shambles.
I can't believe they dropped that 33-point lead.
How is that? It's like, how's that even possible?
They're going with Nick Foles as quarterback.
Yeah.
Bears win in Detroit, lose Minnesota.
I could see that. I wouldn't put money on the Bears next week, but I wouldn't put a huge difference between the Bears and the Lions. I mean, are the Lions going to respond to getting their asses beat last week? Or are they going to stay alive in the playoff race and rebound? And is Dan Campbell going to regroup here? I think that's going to be the big thing.
I still think that they're a few players away. I think they're playing a little bit over their heads. Arizona versus Atlanta.
That feels like a coin toss. Where is it at?
Let's see.
Because I could go either way, but I'd be tempted to say Atlanta by a little bit.
That game is at Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Atlanta.
All right, so and Arizona, San Francisco, that's a loss, right?
I would think so.
Okay. Indy's probably going to lose tonight, right? To San Diego. I mean, to San Diego, the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah, I would think so.
Probably Indy loses to the Giants.
I would think the chances are higher they do, yes.
And then we already said that we think the Houston will beat the Colts. So, Atlanta, we already chose. We think they'll beat Arizona. And then Atlanta probably loses to Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I don't think it's a sure-cut thing, but I'm going to say probably yes.
It's Tom Brady to make the playoffs. I think it's real tough sell.
It is, yes.
All right, Rams versus Chargers.
I'm going to go Chargers.
And Rams Seattle.
Where's that at?
Seattle.
I'm going with the home team for that one. So okay. I'll give it to Seattle.
All right. So then if it plays out like we expect, 3.5, 4, 4. the Bears would wind up with the 4th pick.
Yeah. Man, why did Tom Brady have to bring them back?
I know that would have been huge.
That would have been so big because then really the only one you'd have to worry about is Denver. And then at worst, you get the 3rd pick? That ain't bad.
Yeah, if Arizona then loses, you probably get the 3rd pick. I mean, the Bears could. I mean, in that scenario, if the Bears lose both games, they wind up with the number 1.
Right.
Pick.
Then it doesn't matter. I'm just saying that, like, I don't think them losing these last 2 games, if we've said, is really much of a shoo-in if Justin Fields is playing. And I mean, there is another way to look at this too. Justin Fields may be playing and he does a lot for the team, but you know what? You don't have Jack Sanborn for the rest of the year. You don't have Eddie Jackson the rest of the year. You don't have Darnell Mooney the rest of the year. I don't know if Claypool is going to play again the rest of the year.
You don't have Jalen Johnson.
Right.
That's a big one.
Right. And I know we have up and down feelings about the Lions, but that team can still score. And I think that next week against the Bears, they are going to put up a lot of points. So, yeah, I just feel like week 18, I could be completely wrong. Week 18, cold day at Soldier Field. I could see that giving the Vikings some fits, even if they're playing for something.
Who covers Justin Jefferson?
Well, you know what? The secondary we do have, look how well Kyler Gordon's been playing.
I mean, honestly, let's just jump right into this Bills game. I mean, the first half, the Bears defense played really well.
They did. I mean, the secondary has looked pretty good in recent weeks. You got to be impressed. They have been able to really lock down on some of those receivers and make plays on the ball. They intercepted Josh Allen multiple times after intercepting Jalen Hurts multiple times. These are 2 prime MVP candidates.
Jalen Hurts hasn't thrown multiple interceptions in any game.
Yeah. And then the Bears said hello.
I think the Bears secondary is set for next year. I don't think you need to do anything. Jalen Johnson will come back healthy. It's not a serious injury. It's just the only reason he's shut down is it's a multi-game injury and they don't have any games left.
It's precautionary. Yeah. I mean,
yeah. So he's your number 1. Gordon has really started to turn it on. You're seeing why they drafted him so high. There's still some gaffes here and there, but really those are just some mental things that, it's reps in film, and you're going to see him just really turn it on.
We've said it on the show before. Learning the cornerback position in the NFL is one of the hardest to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you see what he's able to do in the athleticism he has. We love Brisker. Brisker is one of the best safeties in football, not rookie safeties, period safeties. He's really good. And Eddie Jackson was playing great before he got injured. So it's looking at the numbers, you could cut Eddie Jackson at this point or trade him, and it's a positive for your financials, but I don't think that's worth it. You have so much money.
Right. Why bother if you have all that space?
And it just adds another spot for you to have to solve. Like right now, it's none of the positions that they need players in are unsolvable positions, but the fact that there's so many of them, and you're playing whack-a-mole trying to beat down the positions of need. You have a lot of resources, but we'll get to the free agent aspect of it. There's a lot of money to spend, but if there aren't players to spend it on, you're in trouble.
Right. And look, we've said this before. When we watch this Bears defense, the reason why it's been failing is because you can't stop the run and you can't get pressure on the quarterback. What did the Bills do effectively, especially in the second half?
Ran the
of
ball.
the game. Ran the ball.
That's
It's
been
cold.
the
Josh Allen's throwing picks. Run the ball.
that's been the Achilles heel. Is even without getting much pressure, the Bears since the break have been getting more pressure. Not great pressure, but more pressure. The defensive backs have been playing well. It's what's happens is eventually other teams just go, oh, fine, we'll just run the ball. And they run, and then that's when everything just implodes.
Right. Right.
So, you know, you eh, you know, this was an absolute complete good game in the first half. And the second half, the wheels just came off. It's the Bears didn't have an answer, and they just can't stop the run.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's one of those games where you look at the secondary, how they played in the first half, especially how they were able to pick the ball off and, shut down some of those weapons that Josh Allen has. That's really where you can take away from this game, because outside that, it's really nothing else that we haven't hammered home on before. Justin Fields needs protection. Justin Fields needs receivers that can catch, get separation, and yards after the catch. There was really no big revelation from this game. It was kind of what we already knew, but we did get a little more of a taste of the potential of Kyler Gordon. That, in my opinion, was the biggest takeaway of this game. Honestly.
I mean, one of my takeaways is, why wasn't Justin Fields scrambling?
I mean, was that a protection thing? Because listen, one of the big topics of conversation was just how conservative Luke Getsy was. And second half, it was John Fox run, pass like. And I know we kind of try to dismiss the whole tanking play calling, but I feel like there was an element of like, you know what? We're probably not going to win this game. Let's not get Justin Fields hurt in this bitter cold. I don't know for sure, but that's a guess.
But even when plays broke down, Justin Fields didn't look to scramble. And I don't know if it's he's sore, doesn't want to take hits, or if it was cold and he just didn't really want to run. I'm not sure, but it was noticeable. I get not call or being conservative in the play calling of Getsy, but when those plays break down, there were spots where you're like, all right, Fields, you could take off here.
I agree.
And so I don't know if that's a product of, hey, it's cold. I don't want to take a hit in this Arctic weather. Or, hey, I don't want to get injured, a serious injury this late in the season for a meaningless game and miss the start of next season. I don't know if any of those things factor in. It's just, it was noticeable that he did not take off.
Oh, it was very noticeable. And I absolutely. And that's something I wanted to talk about, because people were even saying NFL guys like, oh, we didn't get the big Justin Fields highlight run this week. And we didn't. I don't even know how many yards he scrambled for. It was well under 100. I don't think he even scrambled for 20.
Yeah, I think I want to say he ran for like 21 yards.
It was something like that.
It wasn't very many, and there was even some designed runs in there. So it was a little bit surprising. I mean, let's see, Justin Fields, 11 yards rushing.
Yeah, it was not a lot. It was not a lot. And I think that there was one noticeable thing about this offense too, was I think that the Bills were prepared for the run game in general with the Bears. And that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with Justin Fields scrambling, but you saw how they were able to really contain that, especially in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, they contained the designed runs. I still think there was room running when plays broke down. But they did do a good job, and they bottled him up and took away the normal run lanes that he takes when when he scrambles.
And I'm not just talking Justin Fields. I'm talking like period across the board.
Yeah, I
They
mean,
clamped down on the run game.
this was a game that made you realize that while Khalil Herbert probably is in some ways a better running back than David Montgomery's ability to break tackles is a necessary complement. I think those two complement each other well.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Khalil Herbert without David Montgomery is the answer. Just my thoughts. I really like them as complementary backs.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, we've seen the success of it now for almost 2 years, and I think that like you said with David Montgomery, I think my favorite thing about him is he's not the fastest guy, he's not the strongest guy. It's the way he bounces off opponents and gets those extra yards and can kind of keep churning a little bit further with that. That's really where a lot of his value comes in, as well as some of his blocking abilities. And he's not a bad receiving running back either. So I like what you said about the franchise tag because you can keep him another year at least. I wouldn't keep him for more than 2 or 3 more years.
No. I think running backs are replaceable. And
Yes.
That's not to say I don't like David Montgomery and I don't think he should get paid. I hope he gets paid. And I hope he has a great career. I like David Montgomery a whole lot. I liked him coming out of Iowa State. I really, what we're seeing is what my expectations were. I really had high expectations for him, but if I'm being smart with the cap, there's positions you pay and there's positions you don't pay. And that's just the business. When I was young, you paid running backs because they carried the load. And then as it became more of a passing league, is the running backs really have not been a valued position to pay. And teams that pay running backs typically, for the most part, they regret it. So I would pay him this year with a franchise tag, give him a big chunk of money, 10, 12 million, whatever the franchise tag is for that. And because you need to hit the salary cap floor. But I would do that and then use next year to replace him. That would be my plan. But we'll see how that plays out. I think, there's so many holes. I don't like the idea of creating another one. And when you have the cap space to make it work for 1 year.
Yeah, no, I get it. It makes sense.
So I didn't like the Getsy play calling. I didn't like the fact that Justin Fields didn't take advantage of some gaps, lane gaps that were available on breakdowns. But Fields was under pressure all day long. This line looked like doo-doo sandwiches.
Yeah, it was quite bad. Don't you mean Bills fan puke sandwiches?
Yes. They put, so both of our guards are done for the season, and Michael Schofield is trash. He's straight trash. Larry Borum played the other guard position, and I don't think he played terribly. I'm curious to see what he's going to look like in the long term or for the next 2 games. Because here's the thing. In the one hand, Whitey Coathair's contract is manageable and he's a veteran and he's played decent this year, and keeping him doesn't create another hole in that offensive line. On the other hand, he's missed a whole lot of time from injury. You could move on from him if Larry Borum can fill in that guard position decently. because Tevin Jenkins is going to come back. Tevin Jenkins and Braxton Jones are the only two offensive linemen you have that should be guaranteed a spot for next year.
Yeah, agreed.
Center, you absolutely positively need to upgrade. And I don't think there's really any centers that are worthwhile in free agency. And we'll talk free agency in a minute, but it's Larry Borum is a name to watch playing guard the rest of the season, because if he can fill in at that guard spot, that makes your life a lot better. Even if you decide you still want to upgrade over him, that means you have a guy that can play 4 positions as a backup. He can play either tackle, either guard, and that is huge, I think. So if he plays well, you're putting yourself in a better spot. If he plays real well, then you're like, okay, well, we got the two guys that the last regime thought would anchor our tackle spots for a decade might actually just be anchoring our guard spots, but still that's better than nothing. And if you want to if he doesn't play well, or you still want to upgrade, you've got a guy that can play 4 positions as a backup. But otherwise the offensive line was straight trash. You desperately need a center and a tackle and guys to be healthy.
Yep, absolutely.
Velus Jones, I thought played like decently.
Far and away his best game as a Bear. Far and away.
That 44-yard reception was really nice.
Yep, great throw, great catch. He did stuff on special teams.
Yeah, I mean he had over 28-yard average on kick returns. I think, I know there was a lot of people that really ready to just ride him out of town, and I think it's silly. He's a rookie on a rookie deal. Like, why in the world would you just be like, that's it? He had a couple of bad games as a rookie, trash, and pass on. Like, he's making less than league veteran minimum money, I think, and you've got him for 3 more seasons. Like, why you saw something in him, give him the opportunity. So it's already looking like the kick return is going to be fine. So and the goal is next season that is to make your whole wide receiver core better, and either he steps up and earns a spot, or he sits at the bottom of the depth chart and just returns kicks. Like, that's up to him. But to just be like, oh, that was a bad draft pick, I'm moving on after 1 season of a guy, is just a little silly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want, my feelings are mixed, because fumbling and ball protection has been a big, big problem, and I don't want to keep changing my tune every week, but I feel like over these last 2 games, it's an opportunity for him to really show that he does have a spot in this future, because you don't have much else right now. You got Dante Pettis out there, so try to use Velus Jones Jr. as much as he can. And, either he plays well and he shows he has something going forward, or he doesn't and you're looking to tank anyway.
I mean, Velus Jones, fumbles are not good. And if he's going to fumble, then that's a big problem. Absolutely agree with you. But you're not cutting a 3rd-round pick that is returning kicks well. You're not going to cut him when you're in the middle of a rebuild. Just not going to happen. And the thing is you've got to replace him. It's easy to say, we'll just cut him. You've got to replace him with somebody. The Bears have X number of draft picks as it currently stands, and the free agent market of players is dwindling. You need players to play. So the goal is to make him better. Use your coaching staff, work on those. You can fix fumbles. You can fix them. Ball protection is something you'd work on. And you can't teach that speed though. And if he's a deep threat and he's returning the balls well and he stops fumbling, he's an asset. Even if it's a bottom of the roster asset, he's an asset.
Right, absolutely. I mean, if he literally just ends up being a return man, but a good return man, fine. You need that guy.
Yeah. And just not adding another hole to fill. But let me put it this way, is Velus Jones was the third fastest ball carrier in the league this past week.
Hey, good for him.
And that catch he made was really nice. Over the shoulder sliding catch was an absolutely fantastic catch and throw. I'm not ready to ride him out of town yet. It's one thing where you're the Jets and you're like, all right, the rumor is that Zach Wilson is going to be, they're going to get rid of him after season 2. That's a bit different story because he's your quarterback.
And
he's
that's
your
a shit show.
Yeah, he is your quarterback, and it has just been an absolute disaster. That's a disaster. Your fifth wide receiver at the start of the season, as a rookie, having a couple fumbles is a far cry from a disaster when you compare it to the Zach Wilson situation.
Second overall pick, right? Zach Wilson was
second overall pick.
Yep.
Yeah, the Jets, man, they are probably kicking themselves like we could have had Justin Fields.
Yep. But they took Zach Wilson. And it's not like he's playing mediocre. It is looking really grim.
Oh yeah, they're from the I forgot who reported it. Who's the insider guy that does the MMA stuff? Jay Glazer. I think Jay Glazer is the one that reported that the plan is to move on from him after the season.
Yeah, I believe that was him. Could be wrong, but I thought it was him.
That's big. That's big. Second overall pick. You know what? And I agree with that. Is you made a big miss, and that's where you compound the issue, is just riding that mistake out.
That's franchise changing.
Yeah. I mean, you lost out on the second overall pick, but you know what? You're going to be, you find that issue, you solve it with, that's a decent team. You go after a veteran quarterback and you try to win. That's pretty much where you go with that. Zach Wilson's just not going to be the guy.
They could sign Andy Dalton next year.
I think that's probably not. I'm going to throw a name out there.
Mitch Trubisky.
Tom Brady.
On the Jets?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, and isn't Mitch Trubisky a 2-year deal anyway?
I think he is.
Okay.
But Tom Brady is a free agent. He cannot be franchise tagged. So when they restructured his deal, there was a clause in there that they cannot franchise tag him. He's a free agent. He is not going back to Tampa.
You think he'd want to go to the Jets?
I think he wants one more bite at the apple. And this is not the year. Like, he might get them to the playoffs, but there's no way Tampa wins the Super Bowl.
What if he went to the Colts? And I know my Colts fan friends are going to shiver, and I don't think it's going to happen. I'm not saying it should or I want it to happen, but I'm just saying, wouldn't that be something? They're probably going to try to draft a quarterback, but
here's the thing. If you're Tom Brady, why in the world would you go to a team coached by Jeff Saturday?
Well, I don't think he's going to be coached by him next year.
Who knows? And I mean, here's another thing is, I'm sure you heard the rumor that Sean Payton might come back to coaching. And if he does, he wants to bring Vic Fangio as his defensive coordinator.
Oh,
Can
so
you-
are you already seeing Matt Eberflus turning into Rick Renteria?
I mean, you know, Sean Payton with Vic Fangio and Tom Brady going as a package to a team. The Colts, maybe not as a terrible option. They've got $33 million in cap space. If you add that coaching staff with a playmaker, a wide receiver, which, is possible. The Colts are going to have a really early draft pick.
I think they should draft a quarterback. I think they need to stop with the aging, even if it is Tom Brady. I think they need to stop with the aging quarterbacks, but I'm just saying, like, could that happen?
The Jets, I think, would be stupid to not try to get Tom Brady because they're right there. And their draft pick is not going to be good enough to get one of the quarterbacks.
Right.
And do you hamstring yourself to go after it? I would say you throw the money at Tom Brady and then see where that takes you. If it gets you a Super Bowl, then you go, okay, when he retires, fine, we'll figure it out from there. But you get that Super Bowl and then, you ride that out. But, that as much as it would be nice to get that young quarterback, especially with a young up and coming team, if it's not reasonable to the Jets are looking at a mid first round pick. Are you either the 3 first round quarterbacks are going to be long gone by then? The guy from Kentucky and the guy from Alabama and the guy from Ohio State are going to be long gone. You either reach for a guy, really reach, or you hope you catch lightning in a bottle with again with the guy from the Seahawks, or you roll the dice with a 46-year-old Tom Brady.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that all goes down because Tom Brady clearly wants to keep playing.
Yeah, I don't think he's retiring after this, especially not after this season. I think this is going to be a sour taste. If they would have gone in there guns a-blazing and, gave it their all and came close, I could see him possibly hanging it up. I don't think he's hanging it up on a sour note like this.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
But yeah, but going back to free agency, the Bears, two guys I thought that the Bears could be targeting in free agency from the get-go were the offensive linemen from the Packers and Jack Conklin from the Browns. And both guys signed extensions on Friday. So that's 2 more guys off the board for the Bears.
Yeah, that's too bad.
So the scary thing is you're going to have all kinds of money to spend and nobody to spend it on.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you look at the class and it's not all that great. And sure, you can use some of that money to work on extensions, but how many guys are you realistically extending?
Like the smart money is Jalen Johnson and Darnell Mooney this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
And then you make the decision on what you're going to do with David Montgomery. That's probably where it starts and ends. And looking at free agency, Pro Football Focus ranked their top free agents, and number 1, Lamar Jackson, no interest there. Number 2, Geno Smith,
Nope.
Nope. Number 3, Tom Brady,
Nope.
And then goes number 4, Javon Hargrave, the defensive lineman from Philadelphia. Yes, that's a guy, but does Philadelphia let him go? Probably not. I know he's going to be older. So I don't know how interested you are at that, but Elgton Jenkins from the Packers, number 5, he signed an extension. So he's off the board. Jesse Bates, the safety, you don't need him. You've got 2 safeties under contract. Jamel Dean, the cornerback. I don't think you spend the money on a cornerback. Maybe, move Gordon to the slot and then have another outside cornerback. That's a possibility, but I don't think they're going to sign a big money guy there. Levante David, I just don't think they're going to spend that kind of money on an off-ball linebacker, especially when they didn't want to pay that kind of money for Roquan Smith. Jacoby Myers from the Patriots, I don't think that's a possibility, but I don't know if the Patriots let him walk. Then you go Mike McClinchy from the 49ers, the offensive tackle. He's good, but he's not great. That's a possibility. Orlando Brown, possibility. Deron Payne, the defensive lineman from the Commanders. That's a guy that I would love for them to get, but I don't think that he makes it to the free agency market. Roquan Smith, I think that is off the table. David Long, the linebacker. Josh Jacobs, the running back. I don't think they're going to pay him. Saquon Barkley, that would be an interesting one, but I don't think that they're going to pay a running back.
I don't think so either.
The Dalvin Tomlinson, the defensive lineman from the Vikings. He's coming off an injury. I don't know. Jack Conklin just signed an extension. Like there's just, this is not a big free agent class. So I don't know where they're going to spend this money.
Yeah, I know. That's kind of one of the ill-timed things is you have this money finally in a not so great free agent class.
Yeah. I mean, it's partly why a lot of teams don't have a ton of money is because if you're able to finagle your cap, you finagle it to have no money during a bad free agent class and save up for when there is.
Which is why, you look at the Bears draft position, and if you think about it, if you could get a top 2 pick, and let's say you trade back and you accumulate more picks, well, then not only would you get more picks to draft guys, but you also get more ammunition for a possible trade for an actual asset.
Absolutely. I think that's on the table is trading for an asset. We've seen them do it for Chase Claypool, and it's a bummer that we're not going to see Claypool. That was my big thing is there's already people poo-pooing that, and I think that's silly. He would be either wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 in this off season if he was a free agent. So it's you're bolstering your wide receiver core with him. He makes it so you don't have to, sign a free agent or spend your first round pick on a wide receiver.
Call me back at the end of next year
Yes.
to let you know how the Chase Claypool trade worked out.
But my frustration is that he's not healthy, and I wanted him to work on timing things with Justin Fields these last few games and just have a running start going into next season. It didn't work out that way. And I mean, maybe he comes back, who knows? But I'm not hopeful.
Yeah, we'll see. But I'm definitely not going to judge this trade fully yet.
No. I mean, you know, to get a guy of his caliber in the second round would still be a good takeaway, if you had that draft pick.
Right,
Um,
exactly.
yeah. So I'm just I'm not ready to throw in the towel on that trade by any stretch. Um, and you still have another second round pick anyway.
Right, exactly.
And the way it's shaping up is there's not a wide receiver that's probably going to be available in that second round pick or, late first, early second where you would be drafting. I, you know, there's going to be the guys that are drafted in the first round, and then there's guys later on. The way it's shaping up at this moment, everything changes once you start having the scouting combine and the pro days. But the way it's looking right now is there's not that wide receiver that you would be drafting early in the second anyway. So, you'd either be reaching on somebody or trying to hope that they drop into your third round pick anyway. So it might wind up being a turning out okay that you got the Ravens second round pick, because that's probably where that next wave of wide receivers is going to fall.
Yeah. I think right now, when you look at the situation the Bears are in, the one thing you got to say is you could be either second or fourth or fifth, and that can make a big difference in your positioning. That depends on if you trade back or not and what you're able to accumulate, because it's hard to project right now where you can fall in terms of even just your first pick, whether you're falling there or in later rounds, because whether or not you trade back or not can depend on the assets you get. So there's so many different ways this can go. You could prepare a million scenarios of who the Bears could take and when. It's just there's so much that could happen over these next 2 weeks to determine. And not even that, so because on draft days when you're going to be trading draft picks, if you are trading draft picks. So, there's so much that can happen here. The higher pick you have, the more possibilities are open.
And I'm just looking at this quick. Is the Bears, if you move on from Cody Whitehair, El Kadim Muhammad, and Lucas Patrick, who you could probably consider all potentially dead weight, the Bears have over $142 million to spend.
Yeah. It's a lot of money.
A lot of money. I just don't know where you spend it. I think you probably do sign extensions and front load those contracts. And you know what? Because you got to meet that salary cap floor. If there's no big ticket free agents, then why wouldn't you? If front load, sign those guys to extensions, front load those contracts. That way, if they don't work out or you get injury bugs, you cut them and you're like, you know what? It didn't impact us at all because we already paid that money when we had a boatload of cap space.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You can do that without any stress.
None whatsoever. But going into this week, the Bears are going to Detroit, and that's a Jekyll and Hyde Lions team, man. Some games they come out and they are scoring points left and right, and then other games they can't put up anything. It
is in Detroit, and they've been pretty darn good at scoring in Detroit.
I mean, it's that turf. But you look at that team and you're just like, they're so Jekyll and Hyde. Game week 1, they put up 35 on the Eagles. They 36 on the Commanders, 24 on the Lions, 45 on Seattle. And then they couldn't score on the Patriots. They couldn't score on the Cowboys. then 27 on the Dolphins, barely could score against the Packers. Then they drop a 31 piece on the Bears and the Giants. 25 against the Bills, lit up the Jaguars and the Vikings, and then didn't do so well against the Jets or the Panthers. It is a Jekyll and Hyde offense, and that defense is just bad. They have a bad defense. Now, if the Bears have any hope of winning, I know we've said this a million times, Justin Fields is going to have to carry the load.
Yes.
If Justin Fields runs for over 100 yards, the Bears have a realistic shot of winning this game.
Yeah, they do. Because we saw what the Lions' run defense did against the Carolina Panthers this past week.
Yep. If I'm the Bears, I'm not throwing it at all. I am just running. And I'm not doing any design Justin Fields runs. I'm just going to let him drop back, go, don't throw it. Just wait till the pocket collapses and take off. It's that vision of his and creating things that's magical, breaks teams' backs.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a friend who's a Lions fan, and we have a friendly wager on the game, but I don't see the Bears winning this one, to be honest. I mean, they've got a chance. I just, the Lions are far from unbeatable.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not putting money on the Bears, but I'm certainly not saying they don't have a chance.
Yeah. I mean, if they lose this game, that's huge for them in the draft position.
Exactly.
Want to talk a little baseball?
Sure.
What the hell were the Giants thinking with signing Michael Conforto for that kind of money?
I was kind of hoping we would get Conforto, but
not at that kind of money.
They needed to do something after the whole Correa crap.
I mean, they lost out on Judge, and then the Correa situation, they sort of got bullied into that. That was a panic move.
And now Correa might not even sign with the Mets. I think he will, just not the initial agreed structured deal.
Right before the show, I was walking the dog and I was thinking about this. And this might be crazy. Is there any scenario where Boris goes, you know what? We're not gonna sign a discounted deal. We're gonna go back on the market for another 1-year deal, show my guy, and then sign that extension.
Maybe, though, I feel like if they can work something out, Steve Cohen isn't going to be afraid to pay.
But if they decide to go the route of going another 1-year option.
Oh, I'm not ruling it out.
Is Jed wise to consider that a 1-year, like $35 million? Should be like, there you go.
I would. Yeah. If you're concerned about his fielding, he's your DH.
Yep. You tell him, hey, listen, prove you're healthy, be DH. You're probably not going to get injured. You put up some good stats. And we bolster your off-season value, and you give us a good year. I don't think it's very realistic.
But, I don't think it's going to happen at all. No,
but is it in the realm of possibility? I would say, I mean,
on the very edge.
Yes. If any team could do it, the Cubs can do it. It wouldn't be the Pirates or the Reds. There's only a handful of teams that can make that work.
Maybe you'd go back to the Twins.
Maybe, it's funny. The Twins were one of the higher bidders, and then they didn't come back once the Giants, backed out of the deal. The rumors were it was bidding war between the Twins and the Giants, and the Twins didn't come back. Did they suddenly, come to their senses and say, why are we bidding for this guy if we have concerns too? It's weird that they didn't jump back in the fray.
Well, I'll tell you this. If there was any possibility of Correa signing a short-term deal with the Cubs, I think you would first need to check in on Tom Ricketts on his old-fashioned tax calculator, adding up all the pumpkins and spicy hot chocolates they sold at Gallagher Way this year. Wait, hold on. I'm tallying it up.
Wait a second. I think we can spend. And it's got the handle, the crank handle. He's like, hey, we can spend $73.18.
He's wearing one of those visors. He's got the glasses on the edge of those librarian glasses at the edge of his nose.
It's like the green visor. It's the old timey calculator with the big crank on it. He's working it. Oh my God. He's rolling coins into paper rolls. Oh my God. Man, that guy.
Wait, hold on. It reminds me, it's tax season coming up.
Rebate time.
Too funny.
But
Cubs still need a bat, and there's a few guys out there, but it would be hilarious if it somehow ended up being Correa if everything just fell through with the Mets.
Yeah, you would see that would be a situation where you'd see my jaw hit the floor.
Yes.
But do I think it's a possibility that he signs a 1-year deal with somebody? Yes. But and I only say the Cubs because there's only a few teams that could afford to pay that kind of money or willing to pay that kind of money. There's probably 7-8 teams. So if he goes that route, I still think he winds up with the Mets with some sort of, adjustment in there somewhere or an out, if he's not healthy long-term, I don't know, something, but you've basically got an owner that's willing to just spend whatever and an agent that's going to twist and choke every cent out of you.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean the Cubs have been pretty silent this week. They went and got Tucker Barnhart to a 2-year deal. And
I think they fumbled this catching situation very badly.
I would agree. I would say that's absolutely an accurate statement. Is if you're the Cubs and you tell me, listen, we're going to let Wilson Contreras go, great bat, we want to go the defensive catcher route, I will buy into it because I can see the numbers between Wilson Contreras catching and a better defensive catcher catching. I could see
right. Yeah, exactly. It makes sense. You get why they do it. And you look at what they're trying to do overall. They're trying to lean more towards run prevention. It's like, all right, if you're going to stick to that philosophy, fine.
But you'd better hit the mark on it because Wilson Contreras is a fan favorite. You let him go and you let him go to the Cardinals and you had better hit a home run there. And there were guys that I would say would be classified as home run or at least a stand-up double, if nothing else.
Yeah, like if you got Christian Vasquez or Omar Narvaez, Austin Hedges can't hit crap, but he's a darn good defensive catcher. Tucker Barnhart.
Yeah, or you would have made the trade with the A's.
With
like
Sean Murphy,
that would have been the home run. The other guys, stand-up double, possibly, a play at third base kind of move. But though there were a handful of moves out there that I would have been like, okay, I like it. And I'm willing to accept Wilson Contreras being gone. Tucker Barnhart is not one of those options.
No, and you know what? If this was a few years ago, I think we'd be singing a different tune because he is a multi-time Gold Glove winner. But that was a few years ago. Last year, he had a -8 defensive runs saved, and the framing was really, really struggling. And listen, he was a solid hitting catcher a few years ago. But even if he wasn't that good of a hitter anymore, like he is now, but he was at least still giving you Gold Glove defense, I'd still be more accepting of it. It's just, you better hope that he can rebound to the type of defensive catching that he was, because if you were going to go off last year was really bad.
Last year was really bad, and you hope that's an anomaly because he's not ancient. He's old. He's about to turn 32 for baseball age, or for catcher age. That's not spring chicken, but it's not ancient either. So you're like, okay, hopefully he bounces back. And I think that's the Cubs' hope, is that they get the better version of Tucker Barnhart.
That's a what if, though.
I mean, that is a big what if. He played a long time for the Reds, was a good catcher with the Reds. That last year with Detroit was just abysmal. It's is it Detroit was just a bottomless pit and things will turn around at Wrigley? I don't know.
Was he injured? I don't know.
That's a possibility too. I don't know. But this seems like it was going out and buying your kids Christmas presents on New Year's Eve night. This is what it really seems like for a topical comparison.
I got you a Pez dispenser with no Pez.
I got you expired beef jerky.
Here's a set of crayons and half of them are missing. One of them is purple, but I think Ding Dong George took that one.
Yeah. I mean, his F-WAR offensively is just abysmal. I mean, last year is 63 WRC plus, the year before 80, 76, 78, 88. His WAR last year was a negative. The year before was 1.2, 0.7, 0.6. This just tells me he's going to be platooning with Yan Gomes.
Yeah.
Not an everyday guy.
Yeah, absolutely. He's the backup catcher. Yan Gomes is your number one. And listen, Yan Gomes did a good job last year from a catching perspective. And you know what? The pitchers seem to really like working with him.
Yeah, he's just old. He's 36?
Yeah, he's up there in age, and he might pop an occasional home run, but he's not really a threat offensively. So
yeah. Tucker Barnhart gave you one home run last year.
Yeah.
One.
And like I said, if he is good defensively, I'll take that. Even if he's not the greatest hitter.
My goal would have been to get a number one catcher and make Yan Gomes your backup.
Or at the very least a two-headed monster.
Yeah, this is just not what I wanted to see happen.
Yeah, I know. And I think that there was that fear it was going to turn out like this, and sure enough, it was realized.
And you talk about Yan Gomes being able to give you an occasional home run. Yan Gomes' career high in home runs is almost double what Tucker Barnhart's career high in home runs is.
Yeah, you better not be looking to Tucker Barnhart for home runs.
You will not find them. Yeah, I mean, over under 2 home runs next year.
I say he hits 2 at the most.
Yeah, the catching spot. Ugh. But they at least filled that spot. Not a good one. I still think you need another bat, at least one more bat.
Yeah, are they going to get Trey Mancini? I think that it's still a good possibility that they do. And I know there's been discussions with Eric Hosmer, and today I compared the two. I compared Eric Hosmer and Trey Mancini. You look at last year, they were both a 104 WRC plus. So weighted runs, same value. The difference is Hosmer, his average and OBP still look pretty respectable. Like you're looking at like a 268 batting average and a 334 on base. A 334 on base is above average, and hitting around 270 is above average. He just didn't have the power. Trey Mancini didn't have the on base or the batting average, but he could still hit in the 20 home run range with 20-ish doubles. So you kind of take what you can get. I think I would lean towards Mancini because I feel like we need that pop. I just with Hosmer, you'll get like solid looking batting average and on base, but he hasn't been a home run power threat in a couple of years now, and I just don't know if that's ever coming back.
Yeah, I mean, he had significant drop off in production after 2017.
Yeah.
Significant. That's a long way off. You look at Mancini. Wasn't he just in the home run derby not too long ago?
Might have been.
It's like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. He was in the home run derby.
I mean, he's got pop.
He's got power in his at bat. And
it's also worth noting too that his stats might be taken down a little bit because he did struggle a bit in Houston.
He really struggled in Houston.
Yeah.
His time in Baltimore, not too bad. I mean, look at 2019. Slash line at 291, 364, 535.
Mm-hmm.
And WRC plus of 132.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
That's really good. I mean, he was a 3.4 FWAR with a bat. He's not a good defensive first baseman.
No. And honestly, if you get Trey Mancini and he has the opportunity to be your DH if Matt Mervis is playing the position, then I think that works out fine.
Yeah, neither one of these guys is a good first baseman.
No. Hosmer has not played a good first base recently. His defensive run saves are in the negatives as well. And I do want to make something worth noting. Before Trey Mancini was traded to Houston last year, he was hitting 268, 347, 404. He had an OPS plus of 113 on the year before getting traded to Houston. Those final 51 games in Houston, he hit 176.
Okay. I'm going to read you projections for next year. I'm not going to tell you who it is. You tell me which one you would want.
Okay.
10 home runs, 109 WRC plus, 0.6 FWAR, and a slash line of 268, 330, 412, or a 1.2 WAR, 107 WRC plus, 19 home runs, and a slash line of 244, 321, 409.
I'm going to take the second one because of the power.
That would be Trey Mancini.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's funny because like you think of Hosmer and you think, oh, he's god awful now, he's terrible. But like you look at the batting average and on base, you're like, oh, he's still hitting in like the 260, 270 range. Oh, the on base is still like 330-ish, 340-ish. It's the problem is he's not driving the ball anymore. And they need power.
Right.
That's my whole thing.
Right. You look at what's this projection? 409. Yeah, so you're looking at Trey Mancini, estimated 730 OPS next year. That's not bad.
No, it's a little above average.
Um,
And unfortunately, that isn't going to move the needle a whole lot, but
well,
your options are
when you
wearing thin.
compare it to what the production they got at first base,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I think at this point you have to look at where you were at that position last year versus this year.
No, you're
And
right. You're right.
and you have to figure in whatever Matt Mervis is going to do as well. But between like last year's first base position was just a pit of it was the bog of eternal stench.
Yeah, it was a big black hole. It's been a big black hole since Anthony Rizzo left. All you really had was a few months of Frank Schwindel.
Um, so that's I would like to see two bats. You're probably going to get one. Um, you signed Drew Smiley. Um, I would imagine you're probably going to sign maybe another middle reliever arm.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of those cheap guys out there that the Cubs typically turn into something productive in terms of bullpen arms. I'm not as worried about the bullpen because, and it's not even always based on what they have on paper. They always seem to figure it out. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
I would agree. Um, so they're probably done with starting pitcher arms, right?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so let's see who you got. You got Jamison Tyone, you got
Well,
Marcus Stroman, you got Justin Steele, you have
Hayden
Hayden
Wisniewski,
Wisniewski,
Kyle Hendricks.
Kyle Hendricks is still in the mix. I think
Uh,
Keegan Thompson is probably going to be a bullpen guy.
I mean, so
Swingman, maybe.
you've got Smiley who just re-signed,
You got Smiley.
and
Yep.
then Adrian Sampson.
Yeah, I think that's going to be another long relief type. I mean, there's only so many spots.
Right. But I'm just saying is those are guys that are in the mix.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing too. And I think this is important to talk about with the Cubs. We've heard Jed Hoyer talk about the Tampa Bay Rays and wanting to be like the Tampa Bay Rays. And we're not going to get into the whole financial aspect. We're talking about the philosophy of how they put a roster together and how they function. And what's one of the big things that they emphasize in Tampa Bay? Run prevention, right?
Yep.
What's part of that? Pitching. Look at the way Tampa Bay has their pitching. It's not just your traditional, here's your five guys that are going to go 6-7+ innings, your starters, and then everyone else is your bullpen. It's more of just a functional staff. And that's how I see this Cubs team functioning as we go forward. Yes, you're going to have guys like Marcus Stroman, who you'd like to see get 30 starts, and Jamison Tyone and Justin Steele. But as you go down further, you might have 6 guys pitching as a starter over a week. You might work in more swings with like the Keegan Thompsons and some of the other guys on that staff. Maybe you get Alzolay if he starts. But you know where I'm getting with this? Where it's more of a staff than a traditional just
right. And you know what is Kyle Hendricks is clearly not a guy. I mean, if he's healthy, he's clearly not going to be a guy that can go the distance anymore. That last time around, the last pass through the batting order is not kind to him. So you're probably going to go to a long middle reliever with him. And you've got some arms that can do that. So if you can just squeeze something out of that guy, that's huge for your the long-term optimism of the season.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see because I know they talk about how he's going to be working out with the pitch lab stuff and everything there. And I just, even if he does rebound a little bit, you can't rely on him, at least for right now. It's really hard to rely on him to be the guy he was from 2016 to 2020.
Oh, you're not going to see that guy. That's just not happening.
It's really hard when you have a guy that relies on location and outsmarting you mentally. He doesn't have the 95 plus mile an hour heat. He doesn't have the slider with insane vertical drop. That's not who he is.
Right. And, I think you like, that's what I'm saying is I think you can get away with a lot of his stuff if 1 to 2 times through the order.
Yes.
That third time through the order, you're not fooling anybody.
Right. Right.
And his location just has been off. And that could be a product of not being healthy. But, if you turn him into a situational 5 where you've got, like you were saying, you've got multiple guys starting in a week. He's got more times between starts. He's not going as many innings, and you're going into the middle relief and working it as the bullpen. I think you can have positive results with Kyle Hendricks. I think you just have to be smart with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I'm really hoping for.
Right.
I'm really, really hoping for that. I look at this Cubs staff, and I've always said I feel pretty good about the staff because I like the way the Cubs have developed pitching over the past year. Look at what they've done with Justin Steele. Look at the potential you have in Hayden Wisniewski. You got what you got out of Marcus Stroman. You got his career numbers out of him, which are good. And you look at these minor league pitchers that they have, and there's a lot of optimism there. What I just wish that we had that we don't have, which could be a difference maker, is we still just don't have that bona fide number one ace. We don't have that Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, Clayton Kershaw type guy.
And we weren't going to pay for it.
No. And this may be a bit of a hot take. And I know that no matter what I say, no matter what we say about the Cubs' value, is they've spent money. I'm not going to dog them for not spending money because they have spent money this offseason. So I'm not going to call them cheap or anything like that, even though we joked about the calculator. It's a joke, folks. But if money was no object, I would be very tempted to give Justin Verlander that 2-year deal. Because even if you're committing a lot of money, it's a 2-year deal. It's not long. But, and again, I'm not calling them cheap, but let's be real. They still do have their limit. They're not Steve Cohen. And you know what few teams are? Few teams are the New York teams or the Dodgers. The Cubs are going to spend money, but they're not going to spend endless amounts of it.
No, because it's the difference between the Dodgers are just making money hand over fist through their TV deal. And the New York teams,
so are the Yankees.
Yeah, so are the Yankees. And the Mets, the owner just doesn't care. Like, it doesn't matter. He would rather win than it's, you look at ownership.
And I believe he's the richest owner in baseball.
It's probably. But guys that want to just win and look at this as a hobby versus the Ricketts, this is an investment.
Right, exactly. They are business people, and they are more concerned about ROIs. And right. I'm not saying that I agree with everything they're doing in terms of that. I'm not trying to carry water for them. I'm just saying that's, whether I like it or not, that is the reality of it.
Right. And I'm not saying it as I agree with it. It's just, that's a fact, is right. This is a business for them where it's a for-profit business. And at some point they realize that you have to balance winning with profits as well, because the ways you make money are you do the Pirates route where you don't pay anybody and then you get that subsidy from the MLB and then you keep that difference. And or you pay money, win, get more fans in the seats, but you don't go overboard on spending. And I think that's the kind of the route they're going. They're like, let's smart spend and keep this team relevant, because it's the luxury of owning the Cubs is fans are going to show up.
Right, exactly. And even in their lower years of attendance, it's still going to be better than like 2/3 of the league. You're not going to be like the Pirates or the Oakland A's or the Miami Marlins or the Tampa Bay Rays. You know that you're going to draw at least 2 million people a year.
Right.
The only time, like in the past, like basically 2 decades, they drew under 2 million was 2021 because half the year was restricted with COVID. So that was out of your control.
Yeah. So 2021 was under 2 million, but the last time the Cubs were under 2 million before that was
Don't forget, if you see the strike years, don't count 94, 95 either.
yeah, let's see.
So you can't count 21, 94, 95 because you had strikes or COVID restrictions.
86.
There you go. That's a long time
And
ago.
that was 1.859.
Yeah.
The last time they were just significantly under 2 million was 83. 83.
And that was the year they really got relevant again. The year before it.
81, their annual attendance for the year, 565,000.
Yeesh. Yeah, my dad would tell me in the 70s, early 80s when he was a teen and young adult, he would tell me, he's like, yeah, some of those day games, they wouldn't even open the upper decks.
Yeah, that's bad.
Now, okay, so I wanted to, while we're on this discussion, let's play a little prediction game here. I wrote an article for Cubby's Crib evaluating what the attendance is going to be like next year. And this was before the Swanson signing. So this is what weighing if they were going to sign Swanson and if they weren't going to sign Swanson. So they've signed Swanson. They've made that move. And I think there are plenty of fans saying that alone isn't enough, but there are enough fans to be like, you know what, at least we landed one of those guys, and that's enough for me to at least go to one game and see hopefully a competitive team. Whereas if they didn't land any of those shortstops, I think a lot of people would have said, F this, we're done. So right now, the question is, where do you put the over-under on attendance this year, and what's your rationale? So I'm going to give you a number.
Real quick. Before that, do you know when the last time the Cubs didn't exceed the National League average for attendance was?
What year?
Yes.
Sometime in the 1970s?
It was 1997.
97.
And it was barely. Before that was
Well, 97, wasn't that the year they started like 0-13 or something?
86 was the last time before that. So the Cubs always go over the National League average attendance, and usually significantly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you put a decent product on the field or you're even competitive, the difference you're looking at 2 million versus 3 million in attendance. That's a lot of money.
It's a ton.
Yeah. So sorry. Go on with your before and after Swanson.
Okay, so before Swanson, I had the over under at about 2.2, 2.3, and I would have said maybe a little over 2 million before Swanson. Now that we have Swanson, I'm going to say about 2.7 is going to be my over under. Last year, they were just over 2.6. So I think adding Dansby Swanson is going to win a few more people over. And if this young talent does grow more and play better at the major league level and they do start winning games, then I think naturally it is going to be higher than last year. The question is how much higher. The way I see it is they're not at that point yet where I'm going to say they're going to draw 3 million plus again. They were drawing 3 million plus from 2015 to 2019. And 2015, they were technically just short, but remember they were redoing the bleachers for the first month or so. So if those bleachers were there, I'm going to call that a 3 million year. So you had 3 million. Highest attendance ever was probably 2016, but from 16 to 19, you were getting 3 million plus. I don't think the Cubs are at the position yet to draw 3 million this year. So I'm going to say around 2.7 is going to be my over under.
2.7. That's a good number. I'm going to go over.
Give me a number.
I'm going to go. I'm going to say 2.78.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to go 2.73. Because you know what I think is going to happen?
So it's just going to be just shy of averaging 34,000 a game.
Yeah, I mean, that seems reasonable, right?
Yes. So I'm going to go like a 2.75-ish. So 2.78, somewhere around there. And I think it's not going to take much winning to do that. And if they come out hot early in the season, you could see. That's the thing is, I don't think the Cubs having a hot or cold start really impacts the White Sox attendance. I don't know if it impacts the Cubs attendance that quickly.
Well, and I think there is something to be said for in April where whether they're competitive or not at the level of a team they're at, you're going to have games so they're not completely full just because the weather is really shitty. And it kind of feels like every year it gets shittier and shittier around that time of year. So that's going to be a factor that's kind of out of their control. Now, when they were in the prime of their World Series window, they were selling out no matter what. But, even if they're competitive this year, they're not going to be seen as that team of destiny World Series or bust team like they were in 2016, where everyone wanted to be there and see it, no matter what the weather was.
Right. But I just, you don't see the fluctuation, the immediate fluctuation in attendance with the Cubs as you do with the White Sox. When the White Sox are hot, you see that attendance spike. Yes. And when they go bad, you see that attendance drop. You don't see that. It's a slower shift. You'll see it in the grand scheme of the overall annual attendance.
Right.
But you don't see it nearly as much in a game by game basis. But I think if they're competitive towards the end of the season, those weekday games, you're going to see the much higher numbers when they're still in it. But the weekends are just going to sell out. That's what they do.
Yeah, exactly. And part of the reason that the Cubs don't fluctuate as much in season is you have a lot of people who come to Wrigley Field from out of town, so they have those trips already planned. So they're flying in from Arizona. They got their hotel. They got their tickets. They're going to show up for that. If they paid for that trip, then they're gonna come. That's part of the reason why that's a thing. Whether you're a tourist or you're a Cubs fan that lives nationally, you have more of that situation where you're like, all right, I'm planning a trip to Chicago this summer. We're going to go to Wrigley Field. You're no matter what, you're probably going to carry that out. Where you miss a lot of the attendance when you're not good, like when you saw, a drop from 3 million in 2019 to 2.6 last year. A lot of that I feel like is the local casual where you're in the Chicagoland area and you're like, this team's not good. I'm not going to drive down the Kennedy 40 minutes and pay all that money to see a game.
Right. But yeah, this Cubs team, I mean, quickly looking at where they stand as far as their roster construction. I mean, your outfield is Happ, Suzuki, and Bellinger, right?
Yeah, you're starting outfield, yes.
And then Horner and Swanson up the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Second and short. Okay. Gomes, Barnhart, your catching duo.
Mm-hmm. Maybe a little PJ Higgins in there.
Maybe. And then third base right now, you're probably Patrick Wisdom, Christopher Morel.
Yep.
And first base, Mervis and Patrick Wisdom.
Yep.
And DH, Mervis, Patrick Wisdom.
Yep. That's why you need to add another guy or two.
You're really relying on Matt Mervis if you don't add a bat.
Because if you get a Trey Mancini, you can say, okay, if Matt Mervis isn't ready, our first baseman, that's going to be Trey Mancini. And if you want to play Morel at third and you're kind of struck for a DH, all right, well, Patrick Wisdom's got the holes in his swing, but he can also hit the ball at 10,000 miles when he does connect. So at least you'd have a 20-plus home run power guy in there as a DH. And then, let's say Mervis does come up and he's part of the mix. Okay, then you have Trey Mancini as a first baseman and a DH, and you have Matt Mervis as a first baseman and a DH, and you kind of create that combo there.
Yeah, it gives you options if you either have injury or Mervis isn't who you hoped or goes through some struggles. You have a veteran there, and if they're playing well, then Mancini moves. I don't know Mervis's defensive metrics, but it's got to be better than Hosmer or Mancini. You move whoever to DH, and yeah, it gives you some opportunity. I don't know what other options you have at third base, but first base / DH, you do have options.
Right.
I guess you could always put Bellinger at first base and Happ back to center field.
I think your best defensive bet is Happ in left and Bellinger in center.
Outfield, yeah. I don't know what Bellinger's numbers are as a defensive first baseman. But
here's the reality.
First base, you're not going to have a good fielding first baseman no matter what.
Exactly. That's the whole thing that is going to be really the time where you're like, man, Anthony Rizzo was a platinum glover at that position.
Yes.
And now you can have some production there, but I don't really know as much about Matt Mervis's fielding. Really the big thing with him is going to be the offensive production, obviously, but I feel like if you are able to at least get offensive production from that position, you take that as a win because you really weren't getting anything last year, offensive or defensive.
No, you were not. You were getting nothing. That was just a black hole. At least this year, you're hoping to get some offense out of it.
Yeah, exactly. The first base looked like 2006 Derek Lee out with the broken wrist type.
Yeah, so it would be nice. Is there a third baseman available via trade? I like the power that Wisdom has, and he's a solid fielder, but man, there's a lot of holes in that swing. But
I know.
it's also tough to take that kind of power out of the lineup. I mean, maybe you just balance it out, and with Swanson and Horner, being able to have less holes in their swing, and you balance out that power with it.
Or you give Patrick Wisdom one of those caveman clubs.
Bam, bam. Bam,
Imagine
bam, bam.
him going out there with just the biggest ass club and nobody says anything. He's able to do it.
He's not wearing a uniform. He's wearing like the Simpsons or the Flintstones unitard.
He shows up to Wrigley Field in the car that you pedal with. You just run with your feet.
It's tipped over in the parking lot with a giant rib on it. Oh, my God. Oh. On the other side of town, though, man, White Sox got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I mean, the Benintendi signing was a really, really good one. And I thought we'd see another move or two after that. So far, we haven't seen anything. And I just wonder what else are they going to do before this offseason is done? Because they're going to do something. Even if it's small, they are going to do something, right?
They're going to trade Liam Hendricks.
Do you think?
I think so.
I think that exploring that trade is obviously something they might have to do. Are they going to actually do it?
So, I mean, here you is where you are. Yasmani Grandal is your catcher. Andrew Vaughn at first base.
Mm-hmm.
Question mark at second base.
Yeah, and I read an article early that they might be looking internal, so like a Lenyon Sosa. I think they should go after Gene Segura, but I don't know if they're going to do that.
I mean, unless his market drops. But I mean, that's an option. We talked about that as an option last year, and they didn't take it. Yohan Moncada at third, Tim Anderson at short,
Mm-hmm.
Benintendi in left, Luis Robert in center, Platoon in right.
Well, I think the hope for them is Oscar Colas, but he hasn't played in the majors yet, so it's kind of like the Matt Mervis situation. Is he going to be ready for opening day? I think the goal is for him to be, but are we 100% sure? I don't know.
I mean, the thing I like, the top end talent, obviously, for the White Sox, you like better.
Yeah, far and away.
But that roster has so many gaping holes in it. At least the Cubs, you're like, you know what? If they needed to start the season today, you could field a team where you're like, okay, this is what we're going out with, and you don't have a question mark. You just don't love the options that you have. The White Sox legitimately are they gonna go out there and throw two first year players, never taken or no professional experience at the major league level, in two starting positions, and expect good results from that? That's a big ask for a team.
It's risky.
It's real risky
for a team that's in the middle of a competitive window. The Cubs are kind of building their way up. The White Sox are in the middle of a competitive window and are coming off arguably their most disappointing season in history. There's a difference.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Like, I mean, if you have to overpay for Gene Segura, so what? Don't you want to maximize your window as best you can?
Yeah, it's bad. And what's crazy is AJ Pollock opted out of playing for the White Sox, and he's just still sitting there.
Yeah, he hasn't signed anywhere, has he?
He has not.
Wow. Bring him back on a cheaper deal.
I'm sure the White Sox, that's something they would do.
you played yourself. Though for the White Sox, it'd probably be like, haha, sucker.
Um, yeah, I mean, who else is even out there for your outfield spot if you were to try to sign somebody off the free agent market? Is Jurickson Profar still out there?
I think so. Let me pull up MLB free agents because, honestly, I haven't paid as much attention to the remaining outfielders because a lot of the big names are obviously already gone. So, you're probably looking at a situation where you have to sign somebody that might have to work in a platoon. So, okay, here's what you have. And here's a guy that I know they've been linked to, is, at least in rumors, is Adam Duvall. So you have Adam Duvall, AJ Pollock, Tommy Pham, David Peralta, Jurickson Profar, Cole Calhoun, Robbie Grossman, Corey Dickerson, Tyler Naquin, Kevin PR, Adam Engel, Ben Gamel, Alex Dickerson, Tyler Naquin, Dom Smith, Chad Pinder. And then it's just kind of like smaller names. Magnus Sierra, Louis Brinson, the former top prospect, Terrence Gore. So I could see them getting a Duvall. Maybe they would go after a Tommy Pham or a Jurickson Profar, though Jurickson Profar is valued at like $15 million a year. That's Spotrac. Maybe they go after a Corey Dickerson. I don't know. If Adam Duvall per Spotrac, and this is just going off this, per market value would be the cheapest at like $7 million.
Is Elvis Andrus still available?
I believe he is.
Would the White Sox consider bringing him back and moving Tim Anderson, or either him to second base or Tim Anderson to second base?
Maybe.
I mean,
it only costs like $4.5 million.
Yeah, you look at that as that's insurance if Lennon Sosa is not ready, or hits a big funk,
Kerthunk,
or is injured. Like, you just don't have, like, otherwise it's Lurie Garcia.
I was gonna say, Sean, you're forgetting about Lurie Legend.
But the thing is his BFF is not going to be there anymore to put him in 500 at bats in a season. There's cost effective guys that they could bring in to fill some of these gaps that would put them in a better position overall, and they're not doing it. And that's the sad part of this.
Yeah. You had an opportunity to make a big splash, and Benintendi's a good get. That is a really, really good get. But there are other holes to fill too.
You know what? I agree with you. Benintendi was a good get, but the fact that he is the highest paid player in White Sox history, that's really sad to say that Andrew Benintendi is the highest paid player in the history of your franchise.
Yeah, I know.
Like, it's so bad. And I don't know how much more room they're getting. And maybe they're waiting that the Liam Hendricks trade is going to be a salary dump to be able to pick up some of these veterans to fill spots. That's a real possibility.
Yeah, I mean, there's been speculation about it.
Where, you're not going to get major league talent. You're going to get, farm players and just that salary cap relief. That's a White Sox move. I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, it's so clear that they have more holes to fill. And there are guys that can fill those holes available. It's just what are they willing to spend with what they have now?
I'm not hopeful that the White Sox are going to do the right thing. Not to say that they're going to have a terrible season or anything.
No,
'Cause
I
they
still
have,
think they can win the division. I still think they're going back to the playoffs with the talent they do have. It's just
But-
how far can they go?
but we've talked about it every year for the past couple of years that the White Sox have the opportunity. A couple of years ago, it was to bulletproof their lineup.
Right.
Hey, listen, they've got starters, but everything's got to go well for this to go well. And they didn't bulletproof that lineup. And then every year since then has been a situation where you're like, now they got to pony up to put a complete team on the field. And now you're like, really, are you going to go with two guys you're bringing up to rely on? And that's not to say that Sosa and Cola aren't going to be good players. I'm not shitting on them, but to rely on them in a team in a window, that's a big ask.
Right. I mean, if this was 2019 and you were building upwards, it's a different story. Right now, you're kind of living on a prayer with this. It could work out. It could not.
Is Gene Segura the biggest, get? No, but he also was the starting second baseman on a team that went to the World Series.
Exactly. And that fills a hole.
Yep, absolutely fills a hole. And you know what? If that's the thing is he wouldn't cost so much where it would prohibit Lennon Sosa from coming up and taking that spot if he played well.
Right.
That's the thing. And that's where I'm at is, all right, that's fine. If you're saying Sosa and Colas are the future, I'm not trying to block them. I'm just saying is have a veteran option available.
I agree.
I don't really want to talk Bulls or Blackhawks.
Yeah, we could skip that for another week.
Yeah, other than I just want to say that yesterday was Christmas and the Blackhawks played the best game I've seen them play all year.
Yeah, against the Blue Jackets. Good for them. They finally won a game and they finally won by like multiple goals.
No, I was talking, they didn't play yesterday.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the Columbus game.
No, the Columbus game was good. But
that was a good game, yeah.
Yesterday,
Taze and Kane look like themselves.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, the crazy part is we're so far from the NHL trade deadline that anything could happen. I mean, what is it? It's like March. It is so late.
Yeah.
It's going to be curious to see how this team looks by the end of the season.
It's going to be a lot of dudes.
A lot of dudes. And they are, for better or worse, they are, if the season were to end today, the Blackhawks would have the best odds for Connor Bedard.
Just pray, man. Just pray.
They have just worse than 1 in 5 options or odds. And plus, I'm not a conspiracy guy, but I also have seen enough things that make me scratch my head that if you did believe in conspiracy theories and you're the NHL and you go, you know what, Connor Bedard is our next superstar. Do I want him playing in Columbus or San Jose or Arizona or Ottawa? No, you want him in a Blackhawk sweater.
I know what you're saying. I don't think that's the case, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah, it's like, when the Bulls got Derrick Rose and
there was something definitely behind that one.
There's always like, if you want a superstar to be in a big city where you can market them.
Original six team
in a top 3 market, that's that's rising. The hope is to rise back to prominence. Like that's a situation you're like, we can market that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying is if you're the NHL, that's what you're rooting for. And I'm putting air quotes in.
Quote, quote, quote.
Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think I've said my piece.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Share this podcast with your friends. It's how we grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, ShyFanPat2 for Alex on Twitter, or AlexanderJPatCreative.com for all the cool stuff that Alex does. And thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears.
Oh, when the Bears go Bears.